Hello, just in case you're just joining, we are waiting 1 more minute. We're going to start very shortly. Thank you for joining us today. Okay, it's 2 minutes past. So welcome everyone to this NCBA CLUSA webinar. We're titling Innovating for Impact, Adaptations and Lessons Learned from Working Virtually. There is going to be simultaneous interpretation, both in English and Spanish. So if you need either English or Spanish interpretation, please click on the button that says interpretation and it's in the toolbar, where in the same toolbar where you have the participant and the mute and unmute button. So thank you again for being with us today. I'm going to be the moderator of this webinar. My name is Camila Piñeiro, and I'm NCBA CLUSA's director of one of our 3 practice areas, which is called Strengthening Cooperatives and Producer Organizations. And we will be following this agenda today. We'll start with some introduction that I'll be providing. Then we'll have opening remarks from USAID Peru. And we'll provide a very brief overview of our programs in the CDP and Farmer to Farmer program in Ecuador and Peru. Some lessons learned from working virtually during this last more than a year. We'll have then a panel discussion with 2 volunteers and 3 representatives of some of the partner organizations we work with in Ecuador and Peru. And then we'll have just a brief mention of some volunteers opportunities in case you are interested or know others who might be interested. And we'll plan to have around 10 minutes for questions and answers. So thank you again for being with us. And so for those of you who might not have heard about NCBA CLUSA, we were founded in 1916. So we're the oldest and also the largest national organization for cooperatives in the US. And we represent all sectors, as you can see there, all economic sectors. Our members are federations like workers, rural electric, credit unions, housing, farmers, consumer cooperatives, you can see there. And we started our international development work more than 65 years ago. We have worked in near 90 countries. Currently, we are in 17 countries with 20 projects. And in 2020, we work with more than 5,000 organizations and 1 million people. And over the last 5 years is more than 3 million people. So as I mentioned, we are organized in 3 practice areas: building resilient communities, promoting economic opportunities, strengthening cooperatives and producer groups. And also we have 3 cross-cutting technical areas: male, youth, and gender. So we'll be talking today about the work that we have done virtually over the last year or more than a year during the pandemic through these 2 programs. One is the USAID Cooperative Development Program, flagship program, very old, part of the kind of like the funding of the USAID. Maybe we have someone who can talk more about it later. And creating, and we are implementing a project we call creating an environment, an enabling environment for cooperative expansion. And the 3 main objectives are to improve legal and regulatory frameworks, build the capacity of local support organizations, and strengthen the performance of cooperatives. As you can see, we work in 6 countries with around 60 targeted cooperatives that have more than 100 members and more than 30 local partners. And so we will be also talking about the work that Farmer to Farmer has done. And the focus of this program is to improve sustainable practice in the coffee and cacao value chains, to strengthen cooperatives, producer organizations, and small agribusinesses, and to promote horticulture enterprises. Farmer to Farmer is currently in 3 countries and working with around 35 host organizations. So the reason we are talking about work we have done virtually is because of all the countries we work, in Ecuador and Peru, the COVID-19 pandemic has had the greatest impact. As you can see, it has been greater in Peru, although initially in Ecuador seemed to be worse. So the number of cases per population in Peru is the highest in the world, unfortunately. So the impact is huge in Peru. And GDP has suffered in both countries, and more in Peru with a drop of 14%. And even in the first semester of 2020 was 30%. So also poverty has unfortunately increased significantly. And UN organizations estimate that all the gain that in eradication of poverty that took many decades to accomplish has been lost in 1 year. So poverty is especially high in rural areas, as you can see there. So with further ado, we hope to have Fernando de Villena, Project Management Specialist at the Office of International Development at USAID Peru. Hopefully we have Fernando with us. And if not, I think yeah, Fernando.
Yes,
Hola, Fernando, se te escucha cortado. It's very choppy. So maybe Fernando, we can start. I think I saw Emily Varga, who is our CDP AOR in Washington. Emily, do you mind talking a bit about the CDP program, and then we'll give the floor to Fernando?
Yeah, thank you, Camila. I can provide more of a global overview. Buen día todos y todas. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. A special thank you to the NCBA CLUSA team for organizing this important event. So my name is Emily Varga. I'm a cooperative business specialist with USAID. I'm based out of Washington, and I'm currently overseeing the Global Cooperative Development Program, which we call CDP. Just to give you some background, the CDP actually began in 2001. Since then, the program has started and strengthened thousands of cooperative businesses and credit unions in over 40 countries. Today, the program is focused on 3 main pillars. Number 1, improving the performance of these businesses, ensuring they're both growing, attracting new members, and are resilient to shocks. Number 2, we are enhancing the enabling environments for these organizations, removing the red tape, ensuring there are adequate safety nets in place. And finally, number 3, an important objective, perhaps unconventional. We're trying to improve how the larger development community, donors, implementing partners, local governments are supporting these community-based businesses. In our current 5-year cycle, where NCBA CLUSA is one of our implementing partners, we're currently operating in 17 countries total, working in agriculture, finance, health, and energy. We are strengthening producer cooperatives. We're building new youth worker cooperatives. We're proposing more favorable law and regulations for these businesses to thrive. We're investing in research to build an evidence base. We're leveraging a global community of practice to advance the awareness and salience of these inclusive entities and to build our own learning, much like we're doing here today. And we're also always seeking out new partnerships with those who are like-minded, those grassroots organizations, think tanks, specialists who want to change how business is done, to bring greater equity and inclusion to markets, to bring basically greater benefit to members and communities. So thanks for the opportunity to share a couple comments on the CDP. I'm excited to hear from our speakers today, and I look forward to a productive discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emily, and for all your support. And Fernando?
Can you hear me now?
Perfect. Thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate it. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Emilia, for the invitation, and thank you to the colleagues, the NCBA CLUSA colleagues. As the introduction said, my name is Fernando de Viena, and I am a project management specialist at the Office of Alternative Development of the Peru mission of USAID. I'm interested in hearing, what the panelists have to share with us, because as you can imagine, it was a big shock for all of our projects to have to switch from a in-person delivery of technical assistance completely to a virtual method or methodology without much time to prepare themselves. So we've had different approaches, different techniques, methodologies, using the radio, using the social media, etc. But the main challenge, as you can imagine, has been the connectivity and the isolation of most of our targeted populations, most of the participants of our projects. So although that has been true, the first month of the isolation mandated by the COVID-19 pandemic was really hard on not only on our project but mostly on our beneficiaries, because they were really suffering from the state of emergency in Peru, but at the same time not being able to receive assistance, technical assistance, because of their limitations on their digital connectivity. Towards the middle of the year and much of the rest of last year and this year, things have improved, and delivery of technical assistance has switched to a more like quasi in-person and digital, but still the issue of connectivity seems to be a major development challenge. So I'm really glad to participate and really eager and looking forward to what our panelists have to say. Over.
Thank you so much, Fernando. And with further ado, we'll have Francisco Donoso, our country director of both programs in Ecuador. Adelante, Francisco.
Right, thank you very much, and good morning to everybody. So NCBA CLUSA has a presence in Ecuador since December 2019. We started with a farmer-to-farmer program. So far, we have 20 host organizations that we collaborate with, and we have presence in 10 of the 24 provinces that we have here in Ecuador. We also have the Clarity project since July 2020. And it's an evaluation of the LOEPS, which is the law that regulates the cooperatives and some other norms in agriculture and touristic and some other sectors. Last year we did trainings with some partners, and one of the most important one was the Ministry of Agriculture, and we give trainings for all the staff of the minister in cooperativism through virtual assignments. And we also are developing a cooperativism manual and how to start up with cooperatives in collaboration with them and with the UNDP and some other programs. Next one, please. So last year, given the extremely difficult situation that we all faced, and considering that the agricultural rural sector was strongly affected, our challenge was to find new alternative ways to continue with our programs. And at the same time, support the agricultural sector to adapt to this new reality. So we decided to continue with the assignments that we had using the tools that we had available at that time. So, and that was doing virtual trainings. So the main challenge also was to support the farmers in topics that, given the situation, become urgent for them in order to adapt themselves to the new reality and to continue with their business. So the main topics that we covered was on business development, such as strategic planning, on sales or access to grants. We also prioritize topics for youth, as leadership, organization strengthening, or develop digital marketing. And also we have to do trainings in how to innovate. So for example, in developing new products or improving the present ones. So what we learned from this situation is that the virtual assignments are cost efficient, are environmentally friendly, and develop additional capacities within the participants. Also, we learned that we had a greater participation from youth because they are more used to technology. We also have greater participation of women, sometimes up to 50%, which is different from in-person assignments. We have also virtual assignments should be a strong component for farmer-to-farmer and CDP projects. Consider that we can have a very strong impact using this tool. And also we develop a guide for how to do virtual assignments, which is not perfect, but is very helpful for us and for other institutions if they want to do this kind of trainings. So that's what we have for today. Thank you very much. And please, Camila.
Thank you, Francisco. Cynthia Mendoza is our country director for Farmer to Farmer in Peru. Thank you, Cynthia, for sharing with us the work you have done in Peru. Adelante, Cynthia.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. In the Farmer to Farmer program in Peru, we work in 2 regions, both located in the Amazon rainforest, San Martin and Huánuco region. Currently, the program is working with 18 producer organizations in the value chain of cacao and coffee. Many of them, of course, some cooperatives and some are associations. So far during 2020 and part of 2021, we were able to execute 21 assignments, 2 in-person assignments that happened before the quarantine during February and part of March 2020, 9 remote assignments, of course, looking for the ways of how to keep working with our organizations. We had to implement, as many other organizations, remote work, and 10 pair assignments where we made a combination, and we currently still making a combination of on the field and remote work. We work with 17 partners. We cooperate in different levels. Some of our most important work is done currently with TechnoServe UNDP, Rainforest Alliance, and OLAM. Next, please. What have we learned from this experience during all this time under COVID-19 situation? And I would like to refer to the pair assignments, because many of the work we do with farmers is not possible to be handled remotely entirely. So pair assignments for us as program has been very helpful to tackle specific needs of our host organizations, of our cooperatives and associations, because the aim of the program is to provide this specific work to tackle specific needs and priorities of these organizations, and therefore no organization is same or has the same problems as the other. So we have learned first something that is true for, I believe, many rural areas in the world, and is internet connection issues. The way we solve these issues is by partnering with local government, reaching agreement with local government, schools which were closed for children, but they have services, internet service, auditories that can be used by the farmers. And of course, as well, preparing training, trainings in videos, in audio, when internet was absent. That with the support of our volunteers, both the local volunteer, which is the in-country volunteer, and the US volunteer, which is the remote volunteer, made possible to reach bigger number of farmers during these months. Of course, the language barrier, having two volunteers, maybe in the majority of the time, they both did not speak the same language. So the way we tackle this issue is, of course, translation, put lots of work for our field coordinators, but also centralizing the information, providing videos, summaries, pictures, prior to the assignment, during the assignment, and centralizing all this information in tools such as Google Drive. So both volunteers could have this information and consult the information when needed, and the discussion was enriched, having this information, this preparation prior to the assignment, so both volunteers are in the same page. And finally, training sessions under COVID-19 protocol considerations. Of course, we follow the regulation of the Minister of Health to always try to be on open spaces, distancing, which was needed, and of course the biosecurity measures, such as masks and others, but also having training, small training groups. We repeat the trainings 4 or 5 times, having groups of no more of 10 people at a time, to make possible that our farmers attend the trainings, but as well following the regulations of the Minister of Health. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. So we'll have now Oscar. And I'm going to remind our participants that if you have any questions, you can add them or start putting them in the Q&A button, and we'll be addressing those questions during the Q&A part. Adelante, Oscar. Oscar, no se escucha.
Buenos días con todos. Muchas gracias por estar aquí y por el deseo de compartir.
Desire of sharing with us your questions today. How have we been adapting to the situation generated by COVID-19? Well, my name is Oscar Inocente. Camila already mentioned it. I work for the NCBA CLUSA in the program CDP Peru. The program CDP Peru has different levels of adaptation. We first attack the macro level where we're trying to improve the cooperative level. And this is key because if this doesn't improve in the regulations and law area, everything else won't walk, won't advance. So last year, serious issues were generated with the powers that be, with the bosses and the cooperatives, because we couldn't interact, and that generated a lot of difficulties. So we're working hand in hand with our partners now who produce Agri and Fenaco, and we were able to get a supreme decree to allow the cooperatives in the entire country to be able to continue their operations. We also have been working or a legal group has been organized, conformed by different institutions to be able to modernize the co-ops. They've been 70 years in production. It needs an update. In between, we've been working with institutions like FENACO and the National Coffee Association, so that they can have the capacity to relate with the government and the ministries and the directions who are in the public administration of the co-ops and who have the most amount of resources. That's where we do that link so that we can strengthen them. And we work with 15 co-ops in Peru in 15 regions: San Martin, in Amazonas, Huálico, Cajamarca, Cusco, and one other area. And we're working in different phenetic areas. We see the legal, the governance, the accounting section, the psychological, the financial section, and the marketing area. All of these activities come with an action plan that we have and produced since the year 2020. But as of April, we saw that the pandemic was going to get tougher. So we started to modify these products depending on the needs that we were already observing by April, and we were projecting would generate or would actually give themselves throughout the year. This comes to another point that I'll detail later. How did we adapt? Look, there's a graph here that shows the evolution of the pandemic in 2020. Approximately by the month of April, with telephonic surveys with the managers, we were looking to find out what was going on. It's the first lesson that I want to share. We need to go to the sources. We need to go and see specifically what are the effects of what's happening. Because everybody talks about the pandemic, but what information do we have? What's the data? We started to see the effects that were being generated and what was going to be generated for later as well. From then on, we started designing products. We started designing methodologies. We began to identify tools, and the tools are the virtual channels that we've been using. And we started working with co-ops. In parallel, from May approximately, we started out with some other local partners a process of 4 surveys to be able to find out how was COVID-19 affecting the co-ops. And the results were very revealing because it let us know the severe damage that social isolation had done, and the closings and the difficulties to reopen operations, and something very real that's coming for 2021 and 2022. The importance of diversifying products. Many co-ops have told us, for example, that coffee is good, the cacao is good, but we don't eat lunch and cacao for lunch. And because of the pandemic and the isolation, the products were either too expensive or they were not even arriving. And so a lot of people had reduced to single cropping, and because a lot of products from the coast hadn't arrived. So the lesson that we learned here to be able to execute this year, the following, and the ones to follow is that we need to diversify production, thinking, and food safety. Another thing we saw was that there was difficulties in the credits and loans. The pandemics forced a lot of credit providers and loan providers to react late. So then the government finally gave the Reactiva Peru React, that finally arrived in August and September. And that also has generated some problems with the co-ops, where in some cases, the financial management of these resources generated extra costs and even losses in the co-ops. This effect, we're going to see it in 2021 because we're not going to see a Reactiva loan from the government like that again. So the consequences here, the COVID, the social consequences in healthcare that COVID has generated. And there's something also that we found is the psychological consequences. At first, we had a psychology product that was aimed at improving the strategic decisions in co-ops and at a company level. But in 2020, we had to make a change because there were a lot of needs that derived from anxiety, derived from fear, derived from family relationships that were coming from a closed up moment. And we needed to modify from a psychological standpoint. Like I mentioned earlier, we had needs and attacked needs and elaborated strategies. And we made and scaled models to be able to measure. And we had very good results with the Ministry of Production and the Agricultural Ministry and Direction and the FENACOP. With the Agricultural Ministry and Direction, we had some trainings, close to 70 chief ministries from there. Because why? Because they are key to applying the national policy and to design it even. And so we trained them with a very practical course, many co-op bosses presentations for the authorities, and that made them approach the farms with the government help. That said, that we're on your side, but it's difficult to be on their side. So what we did was equip them for them to be by their side. That course training was really good. And by 2022, we're now organizing another one for the bosses, the national chiefs and bosses and regional managers of life and Vida and some of the other ones. And in FENACOP, what we did was a lot of national events with a lot of attendance and a lot of trainings with FENACOP. They bring in a lot of people. And so we can say that they're an association that was a little stalled, but now it's fired up again and are very going on strong. Next, please. Oscar, this.
Tengo unas reflexiones finales. Miren, hay dos puntos claves. La adaptación no solamente al COVID, sino
to COVID, not just to COVID, but to any circumstance, has to do with two dimensions, the content and the form. In terms of content, the main thing is if we want to adapt, we need to go to the source. We need to listen to the people, ask, reflect, measure, and detect the effects of the new context on time. And I highlight effects. We need to anticipate need, design new strategies and products. And that's where I thank NCBA, because they were very flexible for providing change. NCBA showed a lot of capacity of adaptation. We made a lot of strong and quick changes. In terms of form, regarding form, I think it's very important to focus on methodology. The context, the virtual context, merits another methodology than the on-site context. We need to design methodology, so that's where we need to focus our attention. Second, to identify interest focuses. But in hand with the co-ops. Look, right now, I'm not going to lie and say, but by July, co-ops had 20 attendances per day, but maybe they go to 1. Why? Touching something that was touched last year 20 times is just generating interest this year. There is very small interest associated to needs. So we need to focus on concrete needs. And with proposals, generate concrete effects and that are visible and viewable by everybody. We need to attack the present problems and project into the future. So on top of the tools that we worked last year, we support ourselves with Zoom a lot. We used WhatsApp, Jamboard, video editing tools, and photo training as well. Google Apps, Google Trends, Facebook ads, social networks like Facebook, like Instagram. And part of the methodologies that we used are the WhatsApp groups. We did virtual contests where we involved the hot wives and husbands of partners, and we stepped out of the cacao topic to touch human topics that capture the attention, because the first thing is to capture attention. We did virtual tutoring. We did inter-teachings. Young people from one co-op teaching the youngs of another co-op. We applied the virtual surveys co-ops. We did a lot of telephonic coaching, especially in the psychological level, and the massive webinars that we did in conjunction with the production direction and FENACOP. Summarizing, the adaptation, not just to COVID, but to any new circumstance, is, like I mentioned, we need to see how. That's it. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Oscar. Sé que hay mucho que decir porque se ha hecho tanto trabajo en Perú y agradecemos mucho la pasión con la que Oscar y el equipo de Perú trabajan. Ahora vamos a tener I changed to Spanish. We are going to start the panel discussion with Marta Tuqueres, who is the Director of Strengthening Associations and Cooperatives in the Ministry of Agriculture in Ecuador. Julio Arias, who is the Director of CONFENACOP, the Confederation of Cooperatives in Peru. Jim Corben, who is our farmer-to-farmer volunteer from the US, and Mailer Gonzalez, who is the local volunteer for farmer-to-farmer. They both work together in an assignment. We also have David Peralta, who is the manager of the Cooperativa Monte Azul. Thank you so much to all of you for being with us today. We'll start with one question for all of you. We'll have like 2-3 minutes at the most for each to answer how has a virtual collaboration with NCBA CLUSA has been or beneficial and challenging to your work during the pandemic. Empezamos con Marta. Adelante, Marta.
Muchísimas gracias, muy buenos días. Agradecer por esta invitación en la que nos permite conocer y sobre todo compartir las experiencias en torno a la cooperación que hemos mantenido con CLUSA. Como bien Camila me presentó y también dar a conocer, soy Marta Túqueres. Actualmente soy directora de fortalecimiento asociativo del Ministerio de Agricultura.
Strengthening of the Department of Agriculture and Livestock in Ecuador, and a very good question where we have to rethink the benefits that we have and with the cooperatives. And I have to highlight last year in April, we expressed an approach of cooperative between the Department of Agriculture and CLUSA because of this medical emergency and what to do. I mean, I think we've all been in that process, and we have to support this very important contribution that we have as a virtual educational experience with the Department of Culture, and to identify social organizational area, and we also saw that there was a good response to it that was directed especially to social organizations, and that's how we also had a second point in time generated this course, a virtual course to admin with a national audience, that equally we were able to strengthen knowledge and share experiences of other organizations that have been working in a positive way within this organizational process in Ecuador. And this was done with virtual courses and educational and motivators with a certificate at the end of the course. And so the theme of this virtual course was modern, cooperative, associative, and based on international experience, and which is what motivated the participants the most participate and to be there in the sessions. And this was through experts and in the subject, and contextualized to the actual reality, the social reality, the geographical and cultural reality of Ecuador within the rural area, especially enabling the participants to assimilate key points theoretically, and sharing practical experiences of the volunteers and associations that were visualized during the sessions. And so I need to highlight as well that staff, admin staff that was able to gain this experience and knowledge need to continue in the interpretation of cooperativism and the basic tenets of to accomplish the and this will be shared therefore to other organizations that are linked to the daily work that our technical teams carry out in the Department of Culture. And we were able to identify some challenges with access to internet in rural areas, especially where we had our second moment that was focused on the social organizations. And that's a challenge that not just in Ecuador, but also other countries as well, that we still have weaknesses in the area of connectivity for some of the participants. And to point some of we had to add some of the hours, the extra hours for some of the technicians, but we also had co-workers. I would have said the female participation that had issues during the presentation of the material, because they also had to carry out their own responsibilities, women within the home. And that was benefits, but also challenges that we saw with this new dynamic of CLUSA and the Department of Culture. Thank you so much, Marta. And now Julio Arias with FENACOP.
¿Cómo ha sido la colaboración con NCBA?
How was the collaboration with NCBA CLUSA? 2 minutes, please. Thank you, Camila. First of all, please receive the very warm greetings, General Manager of FENACOP. And as far as the question that you asked, it's a very important question, and we all know the pandemic caught us all off guard, and no one thought that this situation was going to worsen the way that it did. And the pandemic information, we got it through the news channels, and the news that were of all different sorts that would disorient and overwhelm, and some would minimize the pandemic But then in Europe, the dead were already there. I mean, some said that it wasn't going to hit the Americas, especially Peru, but the pandemic did show up, and this presented a big challenge that we had to face, and how to interact with it, how to communicate with each other, and how to receive classes, and how to attend the class, how to carry out our daily lives. I mean, all of the questions were many that we would ask ourselves, and that went hand by hand, that created the stress of the very pandemic that we were in and immersed in. And of course, this is where communication, virtual communication, comes to play. And for many, especially for the older folks, it was hard. And it was, for the youth, it was more of an adaptive, because the kids and youth, they are up to speed with technology and the changes, but not with the older folks. And so when the pandemic hits, in NCBA CLUSA, we were developing a lot of in-person courses and educational. We were in Terapoto, in Cusco, in Puno, and in person in the region. But then pandemic hits, and all of a sudden we're paralyzed, and we didn't know what to do. I remember that I was chatting with Oscar, and Oscar, well, he was the person that gave us that push that we needed to be able to embark in the virtual webinars. And so but he said, Julio, you need to do this. And well, that's what happened, of course. And so, like we say, in the sports, the ball was in our court, right, in Penaco. And so we had to coordinate. We had to work with admin. We had to let them know that we were taking on this new challenge of virtual communication, and with the support of CLUSA, of course. And so some would ask me, and they would say, "Well, hey, listen, how are we going to do this?" And well, he said, and I said, "Well, you have a kid. We have a grandson. They're gonna help you." And that's exactly what happened. And so that's how we started. And in 2020, that paralyzed us all. I mean, it was 4 months almost. The pandemic, everything stopped. And so then we started working. And I think I remember that was August 26th of 2020 that we launched our first event, a virtual event via Zoom. And we started working through there. And that was the next event was September 17th, October 1st, October 22nd, November 5th. And then November 5th, I mention it because it was a very important event, because we needed the support of experts in the subject, doctors, psychologists, to be able to aid the cooperatives in this, how to face the pandemic, the stress that this pandemic causes. And this is what Oscar said. This is the event was multitudinal. I mean, everybody wanted to ask, everybody wanted to know how to face the pandemic. And then November 12th of 2020, we also had another event, Latin America, with women leaders. And Confenacop, we always are very aware of gender equality, and so it was also a very well attended event. The president of ASPID in America was in attendance, and then women leaders in Latin America and Peru. And we, December, we had another governance event, and we closed down 2020. In 2021, we started with a lot of strength. There's the mechanics that were set in motion, a way of working, and so I mean I'm grateful and in CLUSA and our friend Oscar that were able to give us the ability to delve into this new way of communicating virtually. Thank you, Julio.
Our farmer-to-farmer volunteer in Peru. Go ahead, Jim. The floor is yours. 2 minutes, please.
Yes, thank you very much for inviting me to this, and greetings from the Green Mountains of Vermont. I really appreciate being part of this. After 25 years of living and working in Central America with farmers there, it was quite an experience to work in Peru and Ecuador with co-ops and farmers in a very different situation. But of course, on top of the pandemic, it made it even more challenging and probably difficult on both sides. From my point of view, a little bit, but more from the farmers and the cooperatives that they're in had a much more difficult situation to deal with. But I think it was a great opportunity. It put everybody to the test, really. And I think they did a marvelous job of pulling together the situation and doing the best they could. I found it a great opportunity to learn about people at a distance. And there was a lot of good information exchanged and good communications. We were able to do an assessment. I should say the team on the ground did an assessment, and we developed a training program that we did as a team with both local staff and myself supporting them a little bit. We had some good training in soils and soil fertility and soil testing and compost, with the goal of trying to improve productivity of cacao and coffee, as well as address the concern about cadmium heavy metals in the soils, and try to do that through the technology that we were promoting with the cooperative. And I think they were very receptive to learn about this. They already know very well what they're dealing with, and extra information I think was welcome. So it was very good. But as I say, I think the big challenge is at the receiving end. It's hard enough to deal with somebody who shows up for a couple of weeks to help and then disappears, and you're left trying to continue. But when the person doesn't even show up and everything is done remotely, they did an excellent job of establishing communications. And as Mihiler will tell you a little bit about how they did the work on the ground, the idea of having a counterpart person, a volunteer on site, I think was an excellent way of dealing with that. And it worked very well, as best as could possibly be expected. And I hope that will continue. I'll let it go here, and we can discuss this further if there are questions.
Thank you so much, Jim. Adelante, Mahiler González, a volunteer, farmer-to-farmer volunteer in Peru. Adelante, Mahiler. No se escucha, Mahiler.
Okay.
Mientras tanto, please.
We can't hear you, Mahiler.
In the Q&A chat button. Adelante, Mahiler. Sí. No se escucha, Mahiler.
Hola, disculpe.
We can't hear you, Mahiler. Yeah, sorry. Can you see me, hear me? Okay, thank you. So my name's Myler, and I'm the local volunteer here of the region of Samatia in Peru, and it was really good for me to participate with the citizens and with the here in San Martin with partners, and it's been a benefit here. It was a time during a time of COVID, and I was also having to be in lockdown here in Peru and other countries, and to be a volunteer was it enabled me to get the stress out and share knowledge, and to be in contact with nature, which was really, really good. And as far as the challenge, I think that the challenge was significant as far as the connectivity goes. And in La Cordilla Azul, we had Dr. Jim. He wasn't able to come, and so we had to coordinate quite a bit. But connectivity in some of the cases wasn't the best, but we were able to fix it. And what I can surmise from this assignment that I had a chance to participate in and be a part of was the availability of the work group of farmer to farmer, but also the cooperative Cordilla Azul. They did whatever they could to hold the webinar and the workshop so that it could be so that it the partners were also in support material, and it gave good fruit to make sure that everything worked. And that's what I can share as far as being a volunteer in this project of farmer to farmer. Thank you so much, Myler. Thank you so much for your contribution with our project. I'm really sure that with cooperative, in the cooperative, it's also very much appreciated.
David, no se escucha.
Buenos días.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, everybody. My name is David Peralta. I'm the manager of Monte Azul. We're in San Martin, Peru, and we are one of the beneficiaries of the NCBA here in Peru, one of the beneficiaries. And so to let you know how much of a benefit our collaboration with Confusa has been. We have been working in several different areas, like Dr. Oscar and his staff of consultants and experts have really helped us with the whole marketing side of things, and to leverage our social media and accounting. We have received a lot of support from the consulting and the legal aspects with the whole pandemic and recessions. We had some legal problems, and they helped us to push out a supreme decree to be able to help us on the legal side. And this year we have also had issues with the public measures and the legal aspect and the procedures, and bureaucracy has been taking so long. It's some have been taking 4 or 5 months, and so it's really helped us in the financial and psychological side. That's also given us support. Our team and our partners, we have also worked with the farmer to farmer program with a North American partner to help us determine the quality of the product and to see what marketing strategies we can implement. And we had a strategic plan with also like 2 or 3 weeks ago that has helped us align with the objectives of our organization for them to be more clear. The pandemic has forced us forced us into this virtual meeting format as opposed to in person, and CLUSA has been a key participant for this because of all the meetings and communications that we have had. We have been able to align very well with each other, and now it doesn't seem very, what's the word? It doesn't seem like such a problem as how it seemed like and daunting at the beginning. we have consultants and myself and the whole team with a computer and coordinating the best way possible. And so it's not the same as like a in-person meeting, but now it's become the new normal. And so that's what I have noticed with our collaboration with CLUSA, and simply put, it's been very much of a benefit for our organization. Hopefully they continue collaborating the same way. Métele vos, Martín.
So now we'll have one question per panelist. Les pido por favor no más de 2 minutos para que nos dé tiempo.
I please ask you no more than 2 minutes so that it gives us time to answer the questions. Martha, do you think that the trainings for the Ministry of Agriculture has some additional advantages aside from the ones that other panelists have mentioned? Please, Martha, go for it. Thank you very much again. Yes, a little bit. I think that the objective, the goal of the ministry, the direction is to highlight the knowledge and methodologies that are basic that would allow us to start with cooperativism in Ecuador, and which is within the urban sector. And those are the basis of a receptive system with the capacity to be sustained in time and to contribute with the agricultural sector. And that's a need we've had the support of CLUSA, and just like it was mentioned before, this is a sanitary emergency where at a global level, it forced us to innovate and enforce new levels. And so in these times, the direction of strengthening was able to enforce these virtual strengths. Besides what was mentioned, I think it's important to highlight the topic that we were able to have attention of people at a national level with new participants from different provinces and regions of Ecuador, allowing that to be able to connect from different places, which are not affected, from the standpoint of the technicians from the ministry, and didn't affect their weekly planifications and planning. Because if we had try to enforce the in-body or the presential would have forced everybody to travel. That implies paying for travel, going from one place to another. You require time to be able to do this, and that affects the planning of activities that were in their areas, in their work areas. And so with this virtual process, it generated new ways of connecting and new ways of adapting for Zoom, and to add the strengthening topic. And from the standpoints of the directors, like if we had to do this by being there present physically, it would have involved a whole mobilization process where people would stay, and a place to be technicians, and also towards the social organizations. And one other thing that you can highlight in a because of the virtual level, is that we were able to include women and the youth from the rural sector. We've had complications, but we've also had the visibilization of the rural sector, because I mentioned earlier that a female colleague, in order to be able to participate, what does she had to do? She had to plan, organize, see who she would leave her children with, how to leave the family, the home, and that implies that exit. That with the virtual planning, she can, as long as she has some time, she can get organized and accept the participation in these conferences. So the visibility of the female colleagues, yes, it was the familiarization with the platform, the virtual platforms was sure, it was a challenge. Zoom, for example, for a producer who does not know the technology. It was difficult at the very beginning for them, but now by the end of these processes, they were familiarized with these processes. They were able to get familiarized with new technologies, the processes that we've had to live because of the sanitary emergency. And with CLUSA, that partnership has allowed this. That would be a very important thing that should be highlighted, the topic of familiarizing with new technologies for the rural sectors. Thank you very much, Marta. Yes, what we call in English to break through the digital divide. Very important. Thank you. Yes. So now we have Julio. Please, in 2 minutes, if you could answer about your experience. You've already told us a little bit, but if you could talk a little bit about the impact that it has generated with FENACOP and the organizations, especially that one, if you can. Yeah, absolutely, Camila, yes. Well, there have been limiting factors and advantages. One of our limiting factors in the cooperative environment in FENACOP was that cooperativists, I said it before, are from medium age upwards. So it was difficult for them. They had to adequate themselves. They had to put a lot of them into this to be able to enter into the virtual communication world and age. And with the other limiting factor also, how do you execute the virtual assemblies? That was quite an experience, a new experience that also they need to get used to it and get taught to be able to get a virtual assembly going. A lot of them weren't able to do it at that level because they couldn't find the means, they couldn't do it. Now they were able to adequate themselves and get used to it, and now they do their virtual assemblies. The advantage for me of this virtual communication is that, well, in terms of FENACOP, when we used to do the in-body physical presential events, we had to do a lot of work of marketing the event. Right now with the virtual, it's immediate. It's much faster. You publish a banner and you're receiving the participation confirmation immediately. That is quite the advantage. It's quicker, it's faster. Now it's more fluid. Like the manager said before, it's becoming normal to do virtual. Not long ago, we had on July 3rd, a women leaders conference in Peru where Natalie Cartova participated. We've had this last 19th where the Curimana chocolate brand was launched. And if had we done that in presence physically, we wouldn't have had the facility, we wouldn't have the ease of being able to get there. But because it was virtual, we could do it in an instant. That's the advantage I see from virtual communication. Thank you. Thank you very much, Julio. Now we've got Jim Corbin.
How was your experience working as a farmer-to-farmer assignment, no, as a volunteer remotely? And was it useful for you in professional or personal terms? Jim shared some pictures with us from the assignment. Go ahead, Jim.
Thank you. Well, my experience was good and it was bad. You know, there is no manual for how to do technical assistance during a pandemic. So everybody had to figure it out. It's sort of like they say, building an airplane while it's in flight. It's a very difficult thing to do. But I was amazed how well it actually did go because of the hard work of people at the local level, both in the farmer-to-farmer staff and the cooperatives were able to pull things together under what really are impossible situations to work with. I had the easy part. I mean, my side of the work was really the easiest, and they did the heavy, hard work at their end. And it was good for me to learn how and see how well they do work together. The communications and support was excellent all the way through in both Peru and in Ecuador. They did a superb job under difficult situations. Um, Obviously, the good part was because there was good staff to work with and good people who were dedicated and did go the extra mile to get things done as well as they could. The bad part was I wasn't there and I couldn't see what was happening. I couldn't really participate fully as I should when I'm interacting with the people and the environment and the community. So it's something you really had to deal with. We couldn't change that. But hopefully in the future that will change. As far as challenges, there are many challenges that I think are obvious to everybody when you're trying to do technical assistance like this. But I would like to mention, I think the key challenge, the elephant in the room, is still the fact that people need to be vaccinated. And it's outside the normal activity of CLUSA and farmer to farmer, certainly, and the cooperatives, but that needs to be something that is addressed. And until high levels of vaccinations are successfully completed, all of the other work that we're trying to do, the technical support, the assistance, is going to be very, very limited in terms of what it comes down to on the ground with farmers and with the co-ops and what they can do. So I hope that that is somewhere on the agenda that people are aware of. I'm sure everybody's aware of it, but that they are trying to do something about it as well. Thank you very much.
Jim brings a very important point. I didn't have time to mention that only 10% of the population in Ecuador and around 6% has been fully vaccinated. So yeah, definitely is something that we should all be concerned about, because we know that that's the only real cure to the pandemic, no? And a lot of work needs to be done for rebuilding, and nothing is gonna bring back all the lives that have been lost, no? So yeah, it can make us all feel very sad about the situation, but hopefully we can find some light and determination to have everyone being vaccinated worldwide. Thank you, Jim, for that important point. Mailer, si nos puedes contar un poco.
Mailet, if you can tell us a little bit, for you, how was the exchange useful, and an international professional, did it add value to your professional practice to be able to get out of isolation, which is so depressing for everyone? If you can tell us a little bit about the technical professional, what did you learn and how was it useful? Thank you very much, Camila. Well, we missed the presence of Dr. Jim. He had emphasized the population a lot with the sector of Cooperativa Azul. We hope that at some other area he can be present physically. It was very good. I consider that the technical information exchange with an international professional, that was great. The fact that we were geographically in different areas makes it that the knowledge and the culture is different. It enriches the knowledge more, and the fact that we can share tools, technical tools in favor of the associates with ground cooperation and a cooperative in this case, which was Cacao. But in terms of practices, it was very helpful. Before that, I was leading courses, field schools, taking advantage of the isolation. When I was able to be a part of this, I saw this as a field workshop, because I could share with older people in a more didactic and dynamic way in order to be able to learn the process, and for it to be beneficial for them, and that it wasn't very boring. I see it, and I consider that it was a very dynamic thing. At the very end, we were able to become great friends with with the partners. We were able to this day, I have very enriching contact and with the engineer Julio. We have pictures from not long ago where they are harvesting the compost, for example, and they're telling me that they were about to start a new pilot, and that was very gratifying. And so it's a great experience of all that has happened this year. So I consider that it was really good. Thank you. Thank you very much, Myler. Now, just to round it up, we have David. David, how did the virtual work develop within NCBA CLUSA impact your cooperative, and how did you apply it to your cooperative? You can tell us a little bit in 2 minutes, please. The floor is yours. Thank you very much. The virtual work was impacted. I would say that it was good with complications because we were a totally new environment. And from one day to another to get familiarized with the tools, we've seen that we hadn't managed it. We didn't know. I learned of Zoom when the pandemic started. I had never used it before. And so likewise for my team, and especially there's an issue here that the lack of connectivity in some areas that's very present, for agricultures. Some of us, we don't have the sufficient infrastructure for communications, because the agriculture doesn't have a modern equipment, or they don't have enough signal or internet access. That would be the counter of this, of virtual work. But setting that aside, we've been able to advance a lot. Like I said before, now we see it like a normal thing where we can work remotely with CLUSA. It's a consultative CLUSA. We have 2 to 3 weekly meetings where we advanced in a lot of topics with financial marketing and with accounting. We did that all in a virtual manner. And well, I think, that by now, it's become normal, and it has helped us not just to the entire team, but because before, in order to be able to have a meeting between us, it had to be in physically, and now if I'm with a work thing situation, I can coordinate with them and meeting up with them virtually. And this is because we're being able to manage the necessary tools to be able to have these meetings. Yeah. Yep. Thank you. Thank you very much, David.
Now I'm just going to briefly mention that there are volunteers opportunities for maybe some of you or people you might know. So if you are interested in contributing to these programs, please visit this website here. You can search ncbaclusa.coop. And in the volunteer section of our career center with job opportunities, please look for opportunities. Currently, there are some opportunities for farmer to farmer, and shortly we'll have some for CDP. There is a lot of needs that need to be covered, as you can expect. And I'm sure there is a lot of expertise from the US that can support the organizations we work with in Peru. So don't hesitate to check and contact. And so we'll have exactly a little less than 10 minutes for questions from the audience. I see we have 2 main questions, one or a comment from Manuel Mariño. Muchas gracias, Manuel, por su comentario.
Thank you very much, Manuel, for your comment.
The importance of updating the co-op law in Peru, which is more than 40 years old. And we have done, and the Peru team, CDP Peru team has done a great job in getting this process, facilitating this process. Maybe Oscar, quizás Oscar puedes contar un poquito sobre el proceso de reforma.
And maybe Oscar, you could talk a little bit about the law reformation and how you were adapted to the virtual world, right? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we started at analyzing the law and the regulation. We used the Clarity tool for that. We did it in a group, a work group that include FENACOP and international institutions and production ministry here. And once we were able to identify the weaknesses, for that, we invited international experts in cooperative law from other countries, and we did it in a virtual way. We had 2-hour sessions, and it was analyzed, and some points were reaffirmed or discarded. And after that, we received the feedback from the cooperative groups, the ministries, and the cooperative associations, and in such a way that there was something that's called the symmetry, the adding of the voices, the cooperatives, the groups, and the associations, and the cooperative groups that exist. All of that generated the regulation, this law, which was presented between December 2020 and January 2021, and close to 8 sessions in different regions of Peru. 2 of these presentations were 6 were virtual and 2 were presential, physical. And since then, there's been new additions, and they are going to be added with an initiative that would be presented to the Congress. Right now, with what's happening with the elections here, it's a little slower. So we hope that once this is over, we can go to a final phase. Thank you very much, Oscar. We know that the importance of the reformation is important. We think it's important for when there's a law, and with such a recent law. Sí, dale, anda vos.
There are things that need to be addressed, and the development of the cooperatives, the bills and laws and regulations are the things that mostly have to be addressed in most countries. Thank you, Oscar and Francisco, for their work that they're leaders of, and their contributions in the to aid the cooperative world to overcome this barrier.
Question from Jose Padilla. Thank you so much. And I'm not sure who should answer, so feel free, anyone to respond. He's asking, how can we create, oh, I don't see the question anymore, but it was about how to create a model for diversification in the coffee and cacao value chains. We know Oscar mentioned that this was an important problem in the worst times of the pandemic. The cooperative members and communities did not have access to affordable food. We know that's an increasing problem in the developing world because the prices have continued to increase. So diversification is a key strategy, no, for all small farmers. So I see a hand raised. I'm not sure if who is raising the hand, but maybe we can give the floor to the audience too if they want to answer, or let me first give the floor to one of the panelists to address this question, and then we'll give the floor to other participants in this webinar. Otra persona, sé que veo que
I know that Oscar raised his hand. He's the only one that I've, Oscar, I'm not sure if, or Cynthia, or Francisco, or any other participant. David, do you have any idea of how to diversify the production of the cooperatives and the coffee and cacao and cocoa? maybe Oscar and the participants, I don't see who
Camila, I had
raised their
put up
hand.
my hand, but it doesn't show over my name, so you don't know
Okay.
whose it was. I just wanted to agree with the question that this is an extremely important aspect for small farmers, that diversification it has to be key, especially in crops like cacao and coffee that are generally for cash crops. But since small farmers cannot possibly raise enough cacao or coffee to make large sums of money to pay for everything else, there are some very good plans and designs for small farmers to diversify with intercrops, with shade crops, and with short-term crops, as well as animal livestock on these farms that are compatible with cacao and coffee, and that actually improve their productivity of those cash crops with these other additions to as intercrops. So it's a very important question, and it certainly is something that always should be addressed when we're talking to small farmers who are trying to raise a cash crop like coffee or cacao.
Thank you so much, Jim. Oscar, no sé si hay otra.
Not sure if you have another, or Francisco, or quickly, and then
Yes, thank you,
we'll
Camila. Just as
let
well,
Oscar.
I see here a huge opportunity of solve the problem and at the same time get young people involved in this process. I see technology as a very important tool that we have to use. We have to adapt to our new reality. We have to consider technology, and that's gonna give the associations another ways to do business, another ways to diversify their offer and diversify the market that they work with. So I strongly believe that having technology as an option is going to help not only us, but it's going to help the associations and get youth and women more involved in this process. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Cintia, rapidito, ¿tienes algo que agregar?
Yes.
Cynthia, quickly, do you have anything to add?
I would like to add that also research and innovation are quite important, because let's not forget that these farmers, these small landholders, farmers, the issue is this: the farm is a small piece of land. So research and innovation is very important to do exactly what Jean mentioned, to combine coffee or cacao already growing in these small pieces of farm with other products that can be short-term or that can yield benefits not only for food security for farmers, but also for increased income, which is very important.
Muchas gracias, Cintia. Oscar, adelante. Un minuto.
Camila, de acuerdo a lo que hemos estado viendo en las
So according to
cooperativas,
what we've seen in the cooperatives, can you please turn your camera on?
la diversificación
And
puede ser
diversification can be
por
two factors. One, in order for the sustainability of the cooperative to look for other products that the cooperative can set, and also food security. And in both cases, not necessarily are we talking about products that are completely new, because some products have already been planted and harvested, and you need to stop harvesting. They're complementary products, like for instance, bee honey. It's imported from Spain. We have been consuming honey from Spain, and that is a good complement with coffee and cacao. And so there are coffee producers that were onions and tomatoes and different vegetables, and you have to do it more strategically, more massively, more orderly, because problems, you're always going to run into those, and you need to take advantage of what you have. And there is an old rule of business: you can't put all of your eggs in the one basket. The mono harvesting is a problem. Muy
in the chat. Unfortunately, there are a few people who are raising their hands, but I don't see any other question in the Q&A section, and we are at the hour. So we'll close now, thanking everyone for your participation. We hope that some of the lessons that we as NCBA CLUSA have learned over the more than a year of working virtually in Peru and Ecuador are useful for other organizations. And we, of course, continue to learn and improve what we are doing every day. So thank you again for your participation, and don't hesitate to contact us if there are any way we can help. Thank you so much, and stay safe, everyone. Take care. And we'll do what Jim said. We'll, in each of us and our organizations, try to fight this pandemic by trying to get everyone vaccinated. No, that's the only real solution. So that's a fight that needs to be won. Thank you so much for your participation.
Gracias.
Gracias, Camila.
Muchas gracias igualmente, Camila, Francisco y todos quienes conformaron este espacio.
Camila, Francis, and everybody that.
Sabemos que el tiempo es precioso y hay muchos webinarios. Así que muchas gracias por participar. Saludos cordiales a todos.
Cuídense. Chao.
Hasta luego.
Hasta luego.
Bye, Camila.
Chao, que estén bien. Cuídense.